Ambassador H stood before the High Council of, trying not to show his disappointment. The chamber stretched high above him, its walls made of crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. 12 council members sat on platforms that floated in the air, looking down at him with expressions he could not read. Earth, Council Leader N said, his voice cold and flat, "You will go to Earth." H felt his inner organs tighten. Of all the assignments in the galaxy, this was the worst. Earth was a backwater planet on the edge of explored space. Its people had barely reached their own moon when they had already colonized 50 star systems. They were primitives who still fought wars among themselves, who still struggled with basic resources, who had only recently learned to split the atom. "With respect, Council Leader," H said carefully, "surely there are other ambassadors better suited for such a minor world. I have served the Empire for 300 cycles. My expertise lies in negotiating with advanced civilizations." "That is precisely why we send you," another council member said. "These humans have applied for associate membership in the Galactic Coalition. Someone must evaluate them. Someone must determine if they are even worthy of limited contact." H understood then, this was not an honor, this was a test or perhaps a punishment. The council wanted him to go to Earth, file a negative report and return. It would be quick, it would be easy. The humans would be, and the galaxy could forget about them for another 1,000 years. "I accept the assignment," H said, bowing his head. The journey to Earth took 12 days aboard a cruiser. H spent most of that time reviewing files about humanity. The information did nothing to improve his opinion. Humans were short-lived creatures, barely living 100 of their years. They came from a death world where the gravity was heavy, the weather was violent, and the natural life fought constantly for survival. They had only achieved space flight 200 years ago. Their ships were slow and inefficient. Their weapons were crude. Their technology was laughable compared to standards. The only interesting thing about them was their stubbornness. Despite having no natural advantages, despite coming from a harsh world, despite being alone in the universe for so long, they had survived. They had built cities and nations. They had reached for the stars with technology that should not have worked. When the Galactic Coalition had finally made contact 15 years ago, the humans had not panicked or submitted. They had asked questions. They had negotiated. They had demanded to be treated as equals. The arrogance of it still amazed H. The cruiser dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. H looked at and saw a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. This was Earth. This was the world that thought it deserved a place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. A human voice came through the communication system. "Vessel, this is Orbital Station Freedom. We have you on our scopes. Welcome to Earth space. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7. The accent was strange to H's ears, the pronunciation rough, but the message was clear enough. The cruiser moved forward and soon they were approaching a human space station. It was a simple design, just a wheel spinning slowly in the void to create artificial gravity. Stations were elegant structures that used gravity generators. Humans still relied on rotation. It was primitive but functional. The docking process was smooth, at least. H gathered his belongings and prepared to disembark. He wore his formal robes, deep purple with silver thread, the colors of his rank. His translator device was embedded behind his ear, converting human speech into something he could understand. His contained all the forms and protocols he would need. The airlock opened with a hiss. H stepped through and found two humans waiting for him. The first was a male, tall by human standards, with short brown hair and sharp blue eyes. He wore a military uniform, dark blue with various symbols on the chest. He stood straight and formal, his hands behind his back. The second was a female, shorter than the male, with long black hair pulled back from her face. She wore civilian clothing, simple and practical. Her eyes were dark and warm, and she smiled when she saw H. "Ambassador H," the male said, his voice deep and controlled. "I am Commander Greg Palmer, United Earth Defense Force. I will be your military liaison during your stay." "And I'm Dr. Lisa," the female said, her voice lighter and friendlier. "I'm with the First Contact Science Division. I'll be helping you understand our culture and answering any questions you might have." H looked at them both. Humans were strange creatures to his eyes. They stood on two legs but they were shorter and thicker, built for heavy gravity. Their faces were flat with small noses and mouths. Their skin was pale, not the healthy blue-green of proper beings. They looked soft and weak. "Greetings," H said formally. "I am here to evaluate Earth's application to the Galactic Coalition. I will need full access to your facilities, your people, and your records." "Of course," Lisa said, still smiling. "We're prepared to show you everything. We want you to see what humanity has to offer." Greg nodded. We've arranged quarters for you on the station and transportation to Earth's surface whenever you're ready. We understand you'll be here for several weeks. Several weeks. H had hoped to finish in a few days, but he supposed proper protocol required more time. He would tour their facilities, observe their primitive society, file his report, and leave. It would be tedious but straightforward. I would like to begin immediately, H said. Please show me your command center. Greg and Lisa exchanged a glance, then Lisa gestured down the corridor. Right this way, Ambassador. They walked through the station and H noted everything. The walls were plain metal, not the smart materials that used. The lighting was harsh and artificial, coming from simple bulbs rather than bioluminescent panels. The air had a strange smell, recycled and filtered but still somehow organic. Other humans passed them in the corridors and they stared at H with open curiosity. Some smiled, some nodded. One small human child waved before being pulled away by an adult. The command center was a large room filled with consoles and screens. Humans sat at various stations, monitoring displays and typing on keyboards. It was noisy and chaotic. Command centers were quiet and efficient, with neural interfaces eliminating the need for such primitive input methods. This is where we coordinate all station operations, Greg explained. Communications, life support, docking control, defense systems, everything runs through here. H looked at the screens. The data was presented clearly enough, though the interface was clumsy. You still use manual controls, he observed. We do, Greg said without any shame. Our computer systems are sophisticated, but we like having humans in the loop for important decisions. That is inefficient, H said. Maybe, Lisa said, her smile never fading, but it works for us. We trust our people to make good choices. H did not argue. There was no point. These humans would learn eventually that efficiency mattered more than sentiment, or they would not learn and they would remain stuck in their primitive ways. I have seen enough for now, H said. Show me to my quarters. I need to file my initial report. Of course, Lisa said. Follow me. As they walked through the station, H began composing his report in his mind. Initial assessment: humans were exactly as primitive as expected. Their technology was crude. Their methods were inefficient. Their entire civilization was built on outdated principles. They were not ready for the Galactic Coalition. They would never be ready. He would stay the required time to satisfy protocol, but his recommendation was already clear. Earth should be the next morning. Lisa came to collect H from his quarters. She wore different clothes today, still simple but in brighter colors. She smiled the same warm smile. Good morning, Ambassador, she said. I thought we could tour the civilian sections of the station today. You said you wanted to see how ordinary humans live. H had said no such thing, but he supposed it was part of the evaluation. He needed to see all aspects of human society, not just their military installations. Very well, he said. They took an elevator down 3 levels. The civilian areas were even more chaotic than the command center. The corridors were wider here, and humans moved in groups, talking and laughing. Small shops lined the walls, selling food and goods. Children ran past, chasing each other in some kind of game. The noise was overwhelming. Lisa led him through the crowds, pointing out various features. We have about 2,000 people living on this station permanently, she explained. Families, workers, scientists. We wanted to make it feel like home, not just a military outpost. Why, H asked. This is a space station. It serves a functional purpose. Why waste resources on recreation and comfort? Because people aren't machines, Lisa said simply. They need community. They need to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. They passed a large window that looked out into space. Several humans stood there just watching the stars. One human, a female with a small child on her hip, pointed at Earth below. The child pressed tiny hands against the glass, eyes wide with wonder. H did not understand. They saw space every day. Why waste time staring at it? Lisa guided him to a workshop where several humans were working on various projects. The smell of hot metal and plastic filled the air. One human male, young with messy brown hair, was bent over a console, his hands moving quickly over the controls. This is Daniel Rogers, Lisa said. He's one of our engineers. Daniel, this is Ambassador H from the Empire. Daniel looked up and grinned. His face was smudged with grease. Wow, Ariel, this is amazing. Hey, I've been reading about your energy systems. The way you convert quantum fluctuations into usable power is incredible. We're still trying to figure out the math on that. It is beyond your current understanding, H said. Yeah, probably, Daniel agreed, not seeming offended. But that's what makes it fun. We'll figure it out eventually. We always do. Might take us 50 years, but we're stubborn like that. He turned back to his work, already forgetting about H. The ambassador watched him for a moment. The human was attempting to repair a damaged power relay using primitive tools and techniques. It would have simply replaced the entire unit, but Daniel was carefully fixing each component, his face focused and determined. "Why not replace it?" H asked. Daniel glanced up. "Replace what?" "Oh, the relay. Well, we could, but that's wasteful. This one still has life in it, just needs some care and attention. Besides, I learn more by fixing things than by swapping them out." "That is inefficient," H said. "Maybe," Daniel said with a shrug, "but it works." Lisa led H away from the workshop. They walked through more corridors, and H observed everything. Humans working together on tasks that could be automated. Humans gathering in groups for no functional reason. Humans wasting time on activities that served no purpose. They entered a large room filled with small humans and one adult female. The children sat in a circle on the floor, listening as the female read from a book. Her voice was gentle and expressive, changing tone for different characters in the story. "This is," Lisa whispered. "She's a teacher. She works with children who have special needs." H watched as finished the story. The children clapped and laughed. Some of them moved strangely, their bodies not fully coordinated. Others spoke in unusual ways. H recognized the signs. These children were defective, born with genetic flaws or developmental problems. "Why are they here?" H asked quietly. Lisa looked at him with confusion. "What do you mean, their students teaches them?" "But they are imperfect," H said. "Among my people, such individuals would be provided for, but they would not be integrated into society. They would not be given resources that could go to more productive members." Lisa's expression changed. The warmth left her eyes, replaced by something harder. "These children aren't less valuable because they learn differently or need extra support. They're people, they have potential, they deserve every chance to grow and thrive." "That is inefficient," H said. "Resources are limited. They should go to those who can best use them." "We don't think of children as resources to be allocated," Lisa said, her voice sharp now. "We think of them as human beings who deserve love and care and opportunity." Before H could respond, a loud crash echoed from the corridor outside. Several humans immediately ran toward the sound. Lisa moved quickly, and H followed. They found a crowd gathered around a young human who had fallen from a maintenance ladder. The child, a male perhaps 10 years old, lay on the floor crying. His leg was bent at an odd angle, clearly broken. What happened next confused H completely. At least a dozen humans rushed to help. A medic appeared from somewhere, dropping to her knees beside the boy. Two others carefully held him still, speaking in soft, calming voices. Someone ran to get medical equipment. Another human, a complete stranger, held the boy's hand and told him everything would be fine. The boy's mother arrived moments later, pushing through the crowd, and 3 humans immediately made space for her. Within 2 minutes, the boy was on a stretcher being carried to the medical bay. The medic had already administered pain relief. The mother walked beside the stretcher, still holding her son's hand. The crowd dispersed slowly, people talking in low voices about what had happened. Several were clearly shaken. One older female had tears in her eyes. "That was remarkable," H said. Lisa looked at him. What was? The response, so many people helped immediately. They did not hesitate, they did not wait for proper authorities, they simply acted. "Of course they did," Lisa said, as if it was obvious. "A child was hurt, people help when someone needs it." But most of them did not know the child. They had no relationship with him, no responsibility. "They didn't need one," Lisa said. "We help because we can, because it's the right thing to do, because that could be anyone's child, including our own." H thought about this as they continued the tour. In society, there were proper channels for assistance. Trained professionals handled emergencies. Citizens did not simply rush in without coordination. It was more efficient that way, more organized. But he had to admit the human response had been fast, perhaps inefficient, yes, but effective. They visited more sections of the station. H met more humans. He observed their work, their recreation, their family life. Everything was chaotic and emotional and inefficient. They wasted time on things that did not matter. They formed attachments that served no logical purpose. They helped each other even when there was no benefit to themselves. By the end of the day, H was exhausted. Human society was overwhelming in ways he had not expected. It was not just primitive, it was fundamentally different from everything he knew. Back in his quarters, he sat down to file his daily report. His fingers moved over recording his observations. Humans were inefficient, humans were emotional, humans lacked proper organization and structure. They wasted resources on non-productive individuals. They made decisions based on feelings rather than logic. And yet, H paused. He thought about the humans rushing to help the injured child. He thought about teaching students that society would have set aside. He thought about Daniel, grinning while he fixed a broken relay by hand. He thought about Lisa's anger when he called the children defective. There was something here he did not understand, something that did not fit into his categories of efficient and inefficient, logical and illogical, advanced and primitive. He finished his report and sent it to the High Council. Then he sat in the darkness of his quarters, looking out the window at the stars beyond. Tomorrow, Lisa had said, they would visit Earth's surface. They would see human cities and meet more of their people. H was not looking forward to it. More chaos, more emotion, more inefficiency. But part of him, a very small part, was curious. These humans were strange creatures. Everything about them contradicted what made sense. And yet they had survived. They had built a civilization. They had reached the stars. How? H did not have an answer. Not yet. H was reviewing star charts in the station's observation room when the alarms began. The sudden noise made him flinch, and he looked up to see red lights flashing across every screen. Greg rushed past the doorway, already speaking into his communication device. Lisa appeared moments later, her face pale. "What is happening?" H asked. "Mining Station Delta 7, Lisa said, her voice tight. "They've had a catastrophic failure. Main reactor went critical. They're losing atmosphere fast." H followed her to the command center. The large room had transformed from its usual organized chaos into something much more intense. Every human was at their station, hands moving quickly over controls, voices calling out information. Greg stood at the center console, his face grim as he studied the displays. "Give me numbers," he said. 312 people on station, someone called out. That includes 52 children in the family quarters. Main hull breach in sections 4 and 6. They've got maybe 6 hours of air left and the station's losing structural integrity. "Nearest coalition ship?" Greg asked. 9 hours out at best speed," another voice answered. 6 hours, 9 hours, H understood immediately. The humans on that station were going to die. "We need to evacuate them," Greg said. "Sir, we don't have ships rated for that kind of rescue," a young male human said. "Our shuttles aren't equipped for emergency evacuation from a failing station." "Then we'll make them work," Greg said flatly. "Start prepping every ship we have, cargo haulers, personnel transports, everything. I want them ready to launch in 30 minutes. H stepped forward. "Commander Palmer, this is not logical. Your ships are not designed for this operation. You will be risking your crews for a mission that cannot succeed." Greg turned to look at him. His blue eyes were hard and cold. 300 people are going to die if we do nothing. That's not acceptable. "But your ships," H insisted. "They lack the proper shielding, the proper life support systems, the proper maneuvering capabilities. You could lose everyone." "We have to try," Lisa said quietly from beside him. "Why?" H asked. "The logical choice is to wait for proper rescue vessels. Yes, some will die, but that is an acceptable loss compared to risking more lives with inadequate equipment." The command center went quiet. Every human stopped what they were doing and looked at H. The silence was heavy and terrible. Greg spoke carefully, his words measured. "Ambassador, we don't deal in acceptable losses when it comes to lives, not if there's something we can do." "But the mathematics," H said. "Damn the mathematics," Greg said, his voice rising. "Those are people, real people with families and lives and futures. We're not going to sit here and watch them die because the numbers don't work out perfectly." He turned back to his crew. "Launch window in 25 minutes. Move." The command center exploded into action. H stood frozen, trying to understand what he was witnessing. These humans were going to attempt a suicide mission. They were going to risk dozens of lives trying to save people they could not possibly reach in time. It was insane. "I'm going with them," Lisa said. She was already moving toward the door. "They'll need medical support." "Dr. H called after her. "This is not rational." She turned back, and for the first time since he met her, she was not smiling. "Maybe not, but it's right." H watched her go. Around him, humans prepared for a mission they might not survive. They checked equipment, coordinated flight plans, organized rescue teams. No one argued, no one refused. They simply did what needed to be done. Against every logical thought in his mind, H made a decision. "Commander Palmer," he said, "I am coming with you." Greg looked at him with surprise. "Ambassador, that's not necessary. You're an observer. You don't need to risk yourself." "I must see this," H said. He did not fully understand why, but he knew it was true. "I must witness what you are attempting." Greg studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Suit up. We launch in 20 minutes. The shuttle bay was controlled chaos. Humans ran in every direction, loading equipment, performing safety checks, preparing ships that were never meant for rescue operations. H followed Greg aboard a modified cargo hauler. The interior was cramped and smelled of fuel and metal. A young human male with short hair nodded to them from the pilot's seat. "Commander, Ambassador, I'm Brandon. I'll be flying this bird today." "Can this ship handle it?" H asked. "Guess we'll find out," Brandon said with a grin that did not reach his eyes. 6 ships launched from the station in rapid succession. H watched through the viewport as they accelerated toward the failing mining station. The journey would take 90 minutes at maximum speed. Every minute counted. Lisa sat across from H, checking medical supplies. Her hands were steady despite the danger. "First time on a human rescue mission?" she asked. "I have observed many operations," H said, "but never one so clearly doomed to fail." "We're not doomed," Lisa said. "We're determined. There's a difference." The flight seemed to take forever. H monitored the communication channels, listening as the rescue teams coordinated their approach. Greg was in command, his voice calm and controlled as he organized the operation. Each ship had a specific role, specific sections to evacuate. Then H heard a voice he did not recognize, rough and strained. "This is Captain Stone on Delta 7. We read you freedom. Thank God, we've got people trapped in the lower sections. Hull breaches everywhere. We're running out of time." "Hold tight," Greg said. "We're coming, 15 minutes out." "Make it faster if you can," said. "The reactor containment is failing. When it goes, this whole station goes with it." The mining station appeared on there. It was a large structure, bigger than orbital station Freedom, designed to process raw materials from nearby asteroids. But now it was dying. H could see the damage even from a distance. Entire sections were dark. Debris floated around it in a slowly expanding cloud. The station's rotation was uneven, wobbling like a wounded animal. "That's worse than I expected," Brandon muttered. "Can you get us in?" Greg asked. "Yeah," Brandon said, "but getting out might be interesting." The ships moved in formation toward the station. H watched as Brandon guided their hauler through the debris field, his hands steady on the controls. Every moment brought them closer to the damaged structure. They docked at an emergency airlock on the station's outer ring. The seal barely held. Air rushed past them as they entered, escaping through cracks in the hull. Inside the station was horror. The lights flickered constantly. The air was thin and cold. H could hear the structure groaning around them, metal stressed beyond its limits. They moved through corridors filled with frightened humans, and Greg organized them quickly. "Everyone stay calm," he said, his voice carrying authority. "We're getting you out. Follow the rescue team directions. Parents, keep your children close." A female human in a damaged uniform ran up to them. She had short red hair and blood on her face. "Commander Palmer, I'm station medic. We've got injured in Section 3 and a whole group trapped in the lower engineering bay. The access corridor collapsed." "Show me," Greg said. They followed through the dying station. H saw humans helping each other, supporting the weak, carrying the injured. No one panicked. They worked together with the same strange efficiency he had seen when the child fell on Freedom. In Section 3, they found a makeshift medical area. Injured humans lay on the floor, being tended by other survivors. Immediately went to work, and Lisa joined her without hesitation. Their hands moved quickly, treating wounds, stabilizing patients. Greg spoke into his communicator. "All teams report status." The responses came in quickly. Ships were loading evacuees. The process was going faster than expected, but then a voice cut through the chatter. "This is in lower engineering. We've got a problem. The collapse trapped my team with 37 civilians, including 8 children. We can't get through. The whole section is unstable." H checked his scanner. The lower engineering section was in the worst part of the station. The reactor damage had weakened the entire area. If they sent people in, the structure could collapse completely. "Stand by," Greg said. He looked at the scanner readings, his face hard. Then he made his decision. "I'm coming down there. We're getting those people out." "Greg, no," Lisa said, looking up from a patient. "If that section collapses, you'll die." If we don't try, they'll definitely die, Greg said. He turned to Brandon. Get the evacuees on the ships. If this goes bad, you take off without us. Not a chance, Brandon said. Greg smiled without humor. That's an order. H watched Greg gather a team and head toward the lower sections. He watched humans risk their lives without hesitation. He watched them move into danger to save people they did not know. And slowly he began to understand that he had been wrong about everything. H stood in the damaged corridor, his scanner showing information that made his decision impossible. The lower engineering section was failing. The metal was stressed to breaking point. Greg and his team were moving into a death trap. Around him, humans continued the evacuation. They moved with purpose and determination, carrying children, supporting the elderly, helping the injured. No one complained. No one refused to help. They simply did what needed to be done. Lisa finished treating a patient and looked up at H. You're still here, she said. I am observing, H said. Observing what? People dying. There was no anger in her voice, just exhaustion. Greg's going to try to save those people. He knows he might not make it back, but he's going anyway because that's who we are. H looked at his scanner again. The reactor containment was at 11%. The structure was failing. Greg had maybe 20 minutes before the whole section collapsed. And H had the power to change that. His people had technology the humans did not. A structural stabilizer could hold that section together long enough for an evacuation, but law was clear. Technology could not be shared with primitive species. The penalties for violation were severe. H had served the Empire for 300 cycles. He had never broken a law. He had never violated protocol. He had always followed the rules because rules created order, and order was what separated civilization from chaos. But he thought about the child who had fallen on freedom. He thought about all those humans rushing to help without hesitation. He thought about teaching children that his people would have cast aside. He thought about Daniel, grinning as he fixed a broken relay because it was better than throwing it away. He thought about Greg walking into a collapsing station to save people he did not know. H made his decision. Doctor, he said, I need to get to the lower engineering section. Lisa looked at him with surprise. Why, what can you do? Perhaps something, H said, perhaps nothing, but I must try. He did not wait for her response. He activated his communicator and spoke into his ship, still docked at the station. His assistant responded immediately. Ambassador, what do you need? Bring me a structural stabilizer, H said. Class 7, immediately. There was a pause. Ambassador, that technology is restricted. You cannot share it with humans. I am not sharing it, H said, his voice hard. I am using it myself. Bring it now. He moved through the station, following the path Greg had taken. The corridors grew worse as he descended. The air was thin and cold. The lights flickered constantly. The groaning of stressed metal was loud and terrible. He found Greg and his team at the entrance to the collapsed section. They were trying to cut through the debris, but it was slow work. The human tools were inadequate for the task. Ambassador, Greg said with surprise, you need to evacuate with the others. I can help, H said. His assistant arrived moments later, carrying a silver device the size of a human briefcase. H took it and moved past Greg. What is that? Greg asked. A structural stabilizer, H said. It will hold this section together long enough for you to evacuate the trapped people, but we must move quickly. He did not give Greg time to argue. He activated the device and placed it against the damaged wall. The stabilizer hummed and blue light spread across the metal like liquid. The groaning sound stopped. The structure steadied. How long will it hold? Greg asked. 30 minutes, H said. Perhaps 40, no more. Then we move fast, Greg said. He turned to his team. Cut through, double time. The rescue team worked with new urgency. With the structure stabilized, they could cut more aggressively. Within 5 minutes, they had opened a passage through the debris. Greg went through first. H followed, and what he saw made him stop. The engineering bay was a disaster. Bodies lay everywhere, some moving, some not. The trapped humans had huddled together in the center of the room, away from the damaged sections. They looked up with hope when Greg appeared. Everyone who can walk, move now, Greg ordered. Help those who can't. We've got 30 minutes to get clear. Emerged from the group, he was a tall human with gray hair and a face marked by burns. Commander, thank God, we thought we were dead. Not today, Greg said. Move your people out. The evacuation began, humans helping humans, the able supporting the injured, parents carrying children. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. Everyone had a purpose. H helped a young human female who had a broken arm. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You're an alien," she said. "Yes," H said. "Thank you for helping us," she said simply. H did not know how to respond, so he simply guided her toward the exit. They moved through the corridors, a long line of humans and one. The stabilizer was holding, but H could feel the station dying around them. Every minute brought them closer to complete failure. They reached the docking area where the rescue ships waited. Brandon was at the airlock, counting people as they boarded. Come on," he urged. "Everyone in, we're running out of time." The last of the trapped civilians boarded the ships, looked around, counting heads. "That's everyone from my section," he said. "Then let's go," Greg said. They ran for the ships. H was the last through the airlock, and Brandon sealed it behind him. "Everyone hold on," Brandon called out. "This is going to be rough." The ship detached from the dying station and accelerated away. Through the viewport, H watched as Delta 7 finally gave up its fight. The reactor went critical and the explosion tore through the structure. In moments, the station was gone, replaced by an expanding cloud of debris. But everyone was safe. 312 people had been evacuated, not a single life lost. The journey back to freedom was quiet. The humans sat in exhausted silence. Some cried, some held each other. Some just stared at nothing, processing what they had survived. Lisa sat next to H. "You saved them," she said quietly. "That stabilizer of yours gave us the time we needed." "I violated law," H said. "I will face consequences." "Was it worth it?" Lisa asked. H looked around the ship at the humans who were alive because of what he had done. He thought about the young female who had thanked him. He thought about the children who would see another day. "Yes," he said, "it was worth it." Back on Freedom, the rescue ships docked to cheers and tears. Families reunited. Medical teams rushed to treat the injured. The station filled with relief and joy. H went to the medical bay later that evening. He found a young human male lying in a bed, his legs covered in bandages. This was Jason Park, one of the rescue team members. He had been injured in the evacuation, caught under falling debris while helping a family escape. A human female sat beside him, holding his hand. This was Lei, one of the civilians he had saved. "How are you feeling?" asked Jason. "Pretty banged up," Jason admitted. "Doc says I might not walk again. The damage was pretty severe." "I'm so sorry," said, tears in her eyes. "You saved my family. My children are alive because of you." "Anyone would have done the same," Jason said. "Would you do it again?" asked, knowing what it cost you. Jason did not hesitate. "Yeah, I would, every time." H left the medical bay and returned to his quarters. He sat in the darkness, thinking about what he had witnessed. These humans had risked everything to save people they did not know. Greg had walked into a collapsing station. Jason had given up his ability to walk, and Lisa had worked without rest. Brandon had flown his ship into danger without complaint. And not one of them thought they had done anything extraordinary. They had simply done what needed to be done. H understood now. He understood why humans were not like. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They did not measure efficiency against emotional cost. They simply believed that every life mattered, and they were willing to sacrifice to prove it. This was not weakness. This was not inefficiency. This was something his people had lost somewhere in their long history. This was strength. H pulled up his report to the High Council. He deleted everything he had written before. Then he began again, his words careful and deliberate. He would recommend that humans be admitted to the Galactic Coalition, not because they were technologically advanced, not because they were militarily powerful, but because they understood something that the galaxy had forgotten. They understood that true power was not the ability to destroy. It was the willingness to protect. It was the courage to sacrifice. It was the belief that every single life held infinite value. The Empire needed to learn this lesson, and perhaps by standing beside humanity, they could remember what it meant to be truly civilized. 6 months later, H stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Coalition. The chamber was vast, with platforms for representatives from 47 different species. Light filtered through crystal walls, casting colors across the assembled delegates. This was where the fate of civilizations was decided. Today, they would decide the fate of Earth. H wore his formal robes, purple and silver, but they felt different now. Heavier perhaps, or maybe he was different. 6 months among humans had changed him in ways he was still discovering. Greg and Lisa sat in the observation section along with other human representatives. Greg wore his dress uniform, crisp and formal. Lisa had chosen simple clothing, professional but not military. They had come to Earth's formal application hearing, though they could not speak unless invited. This was H's moment. Council Leader N called the assembly to order. His voice echoed through the chamber. We gather to hear the evaluation report on Earth and humanity. Ambassador H, you were sent to assess their worthiness for associate membership in the Galactic Coalition. Please present your findings. H stepped forward to the central platform, every eye in the chamber fixed on him. He had prepared this speech carefully, revising it dozens of times. Now the moment had arrived. Council Leader Honored Delegates, H began. I was sent to Earth expecting to find a primitive civilization. I was told to evaluate their technology, their military capability, their potential contribution to the coalition. I was told this would be a brief assignment. He paused, looking around the chamber. I was wrong about all of it. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. N's expression hardened. Explain yourself, Ambassador. I spent 6 months among humans, H said. I observed their society. I witnessed their actions, and I learned that we have been measuring civilizations incorrectly. He activated the holographic display at the center of the platform. Images appeared, showing footage from the mining station disaster. The assembled delegates watched as human ships approached the failing structure. They saw the evacuation, the rescue, the final explosion. This is Mining Station Delta 7, H said. 6 months ago, it suffered catastrophic failure. 312 humans were trapped aboard. The nearest coalition rescue vessels were 9 hours away. The station had 6 hours of air remaining. A tragedy, one delegate said, but what relevance does this have? The humans did not wait for proper rescue, H said. They launched their own ships, ships that were inadequate for the mission, ships that put their crews at risk. By every logical calculation, they should have waited for coalition vessels. They should have accepted the loss of some lives to protect others. Then they were foolish, another delegate said. They were brave, H corrected. They saved every single person on that station. Not one life was lost. He changed the display to show footage from inside the station. The delegates watched humans helping each other, supporting the weak, carrying the injured. They saw Greg leading his team into the collapsing engineering section. They saw the rescue. I witnessed something on that station, H said quietly. I witnessed humans risk their lives without hesitation for people they did not know. I watched a young human sacrifice his ability to walk to save a family of strangers. I saw medical personnel work until they collapsed from exhaustion. I observed ordinary civilians help each other with no thought of personal gain. N leaned forward. This is impressive, Ambassador, but the coalition is not built on sentiment. What can humans offer us? What is their technological level, their military strength? They are behind us in both areas, H admitted. Their fastest ships are slower than ours. Their weapons are less powerful. Their technology is less advanced. By every measure we typically use, they should be membership. Then why are we wasting time with this hearing? N demanded. Because I learned something else, H said. He met N's eyes directly. I learned that true power is not measured in weapons or ships or technology. True power is the strength to choose compassion over calculation, the courage to risk everything for others, the belief that every life has infinite value. He changed the display again. This time it showed images from his 6 months on Earth, teaching her students, Daniel repairing equipment by hand, the humans who rushed to help the fallen child, the families on freedom, living and laughing and building community in the void of space. Humans understand something we have forgotten, H said. They understand that civilization is not built on efficiency or advancement. It is built on how we treat each other, how we protect the weak, how we help those in need, how we sacrifice for the good of others. Weakness, N said coldly. You describe weakness, Ambassador, emotional thinking, inefficient resource allocation. These traits held the Empire back until we evolved beyond them. Did we evolve, H asked, or did we simply forget what it means to care? The chamber erupted in conversation. Delegates argued with each other. N called for order, his voice rising above the noise. Ambassador H, N said, you have been compromised by emotion. Your judgment is clouded. My judgment is clear, H said. For the first time in 300 cycles, I see clearly. I was sent to evaluate power and I found it, just not where I expected. He looked at Greg and Lisa in the observation section. They sat quietly, watching with faces that showed hope and fear and determination. I violated law during the rescue, H continued. I used a structural stabilizer, forbidden technology, to help humans save their people. I knew the consequences. I did it anyway. N stood, his face dark with anger. You admit to this violation publicly. I do, H said calmly, because I learned from humans that some rules matter less than lives, that doing the right thing sometimes means accepting consequences. You will face those consequences, N said. I welcome them, H replied. If the cost of saving 300 lives is my career, that is a price worth paying. The humans taught me that. He turned to address the full assembly. Earth is applying for membership in the Galactic Coalition. They come before us not with superior weapons or advanced technology. They come with something more valuable. They come with the reminder that we are supposed to be better than our weapons and our ships, that civilization means more than power. Another delegate spoke, this one from a species H did not recognize. But what can they offer the coalition? We are an alliance of advanced civilizations. What purpose does Earth serve? They remind us why we formed this coalition in the first place, H said. Not to dominate the galaxy, not to showcase our technology, but to protect each other, to cooperate, to build something better than what any species could build alone. He showed more images: human cities, human art, human families, human children playing in parks under an alien sun. Humans are not perfect, H said. They fight among themselves, they make mistakes, they struggle with problems that more advanced species solved centuries ago, but they never give up, they never stop trying to be better, they never stop caring. Greg raised his hand in the observation section. N, looking irritated, acknowledged him. The human representative may speak. Greg stood, his voice steady and strong. Honored delegates, we know we're not the most advanced civilization here. We know we have a lot to learn, but we came to the stars to find others like us, to build connections, to help where we can and learn from those who came before. Lisa stood beside him. We're not asking you to carry us. We're asking for the chance to stand with you, to contribute what we can, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. The chamber was quiet now. Every delegate listened. We're human, Greg continued. That means we're stubborn and emotional and sometimes inefficient. But it also means we never stop fighting for what's right. We never abandon people who need help. We never give up on the idea that we can make things better. He looked at H. Ambassador H came to Earth expecting to find primitives. Instead, he found people who share the values that should matter to all of us. People who believe that civilization means protecting each other, not just advancing our own interests. Greg sat down. The chamber remained quiet for a long moment. Then the voting began. It was not unanimous. N voted against admission, as did several other representatives. Some species abstained. Others voted no based on Earth's technological level. But when the final count came in, the result was clear. Earth had been granted full membership in the Galactic Coalition. The chamber erupted in applause from some delegates, protests from others. Greg and Lisa embraced, their faces showing relief and joy. Other human representatives celebrated quietly. H stood at the central platform watching it all. He felt something he had not felt in many years, not satisfaction with a job completed, something deeper, something that felt like hope. N approached him as the chamber cleared. You have destroyed your career for these humans, he said coldly. You will face a tribunal for your violation of law. Your service to the Empire is over. I know, H said, but I am requesting permanent assignment as ambassador to Earth. N stared at him. After everything, you want to stay with them. They have much to teach us, H said, and I have much yet to learn. N left without another word. Other delegates filed past, some offering congratulations, others showing clear disapproval. H accepted both with equal calm. Greg and Lisa found him as the chamber emptied. Thank you, Lisa said simply, for everything. I did nothing special, H said. I simply told the truth. You risked everything for us, Greg said. For people you barely knew, that's not nothing. H looked at them both, these strange, emotional, inefficient humans who had changed everything he believed about power and civilization and what truly mattered. No, he said quietly, you risked everything first. You showed me what courage looks like, what strength truly means. I simply learned from excellent teachers. They walked together out of the Grand Assembly Hall. Outside, Earth's sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that would have seemed alien to H 6 months ago. Now they just seemed beautiful. So what happens now? Lisa asked. Now we begin, H said. Earth joins the coalition. My people will protest. Some species will resist. There will be challenges. Sounds about right, Greg said with a slight smile. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy. That is very human thinking, H observed. You're learning, Lisa said, and she was smiling her warm smile again. H realized something then. 6 months ago, he had come to Earth as an ambassador from a superior civilization. He had expected to find primitives and file a negative report. Instead, he had found something he never expected. He had found people who understood what the galaxy had forgotten, that true power was not the ability to dominate or destroy. True power was the courage to protect, the strength to sacrifice, and the wisdom to know that every life mattered. Only beside humanity did he witness the true meaning of power, and it had changed everything.